Hello everyone, and thank you so much for your support, for your shares, and I really appreciate it. So let's start our discussion. And firstly, I want to let you know that I will record the videos sequentially. So if you want to follow up and trying to really grasp and understand the knowledge that I'm trying to tell you, please watch from the first video because we will go deeper and deeper with each video, and it will be difficult if you open up the seventh or eighth video. It will be just difficult to understand what I'm saying. So yeah, that's just my request. And yeah, let's speak about happiness and distress. So of course everyone wants to be happy in life, and we're trying to be happy, we're trying to achieve this happiness through different means. So some people are less fortunate and they're born in a poor family, so they have to work hard, they have to work their way up and trying to be rich. And some people are more fortunate, they're born in already in a rich family, and you can say sometimes they grow up as a good man, sometimes they are called spoiled kids, so they have a lot of money. But anyway, everyone's situation is different, but everyone is trying to be happy. Happiness is often equal in our understanding to the word pleasure. So we're trying to get pleasure as much as we can. We're trying to satisfy our senses. So whether we are watching something, watching TV, watching sport, looking at something very beautiful like paintings, going to the museum, or it's our tongue we're trying to satisfy, so the taste, so we want to taste some good food. We want to drink some nice drinks, and also tongue has different function. We can speak, so we speak with our friends, with our family, we enjoy the good company, and so on. With tactile feelings, we want to touch our beloved, and we want to hug our friends, and so on. So whatever we do is somehow or other is connected to our senses, and it is recognized that the pleasure that we get from our senses um, is can satisfy us to some extent, but not to the full extent that we desire. So you probably notice, although that we're trying to work very hard for our happiness, to gain that pleasure, sometimes we still have distress. And actually in today's society, a lot of people have mental issues, but it is common everywhere. It is more common in the modern world as well. People have a lot of stress, anxiety, depression, suicide rates are high, even among the rich people. So it doesn't matter where you live. For example, Russia, the standard of living or the quality of life is not so high compared to Australia, and Australia's quality of life may be a bit lower than countries like Norway and so on. But in all of these countries, people suffer, and especially from mental issues. So we're trying to, well, I personally try to understand what's the cause of this suffering. And while I was looking for this answer, it was there were so many different views that people have, different perspectives. And so what the modern psychology, the Western psychology recognizes is that happiness and distress, they come like waves. Sometimes you have a good life, and then some problem happens. So let me bring up some good points that Eastern philosophy, from now I will call it Vedic knowledge, because this is the actual source of knowledge that I studied. It is the knowledge that has been available in India for at least 5,000 years and longer. You may say it's outdated, but I want you to understand the importance of the Vedic knowledge. It is very deep. You can understand the real cause of your problems. So we'll go on and we'll speak about it, but I want you to understand that I've studied both and I can kind of compare that the Western psychology is very useful, but it does not cover like the deep layers. It doesn't uncover the deep layers of meaning. And yeah, let's now what I want to say is Vedic knowledge explains that we experience three types of suffering. So it is suffering from our body. So we get sick, we get flu. It's, you know, when it's winter in Australia, we get sick. Often some cold comes and so on. It brings us suffering. We don't want to get sick, but it is against our will that we get sick. If we don't get sick physically, we get sick mentally. I guess everyone understands. Some thoughts come into your head and you start to worry, start to stress out, feeling anxious. And it's not a very pleasing experience, it's a suffering experience. But if we are mentally healthy, then what happens is a second type of suffering that is described in Vedic knowledge is other people, they hurt us, they hurt our feelings. Sometimes unintentionally, so they don't have intention to unintentionally to hurt us. They don't have that intention to cause us some suffering, but they still do. And of course, you cannot really avoid it. You know, you stand in a tram, you catch public transport, someone steps on your feet, of course, is like a very common example. And it's not very pleasing experience, you suffer, but you can't do much, it just happened. So other people cause us suffering. Or at work, you know, your boss can stress you out, say, you don't meet your deadlines, please hurry up, and there's more work, and so on. And if that doesn't happen, then it's very interesting point is that the third type of suffering is caused by natural disasters. So right now, I don't need to mention, but in Australia is bushfires. Of course, everyone knows, the whole world knows. It causes a lot of suffering to the environment, to the animals, and people. Even where there is no fire, there is a lot of smoke coming, which disturbs everyone. So it's very unpleasant experience. It's suffering. People suffer. So whether you want to suffer or you don't want to suffer, you will suffer in this life. It's very common truth. So of course no one wants to suffer. But similarly, actually happiness comes in waves. You know, sometimes you're very happy when you get a gift, when you buy something. For example, you were saving for a car, and you buy a new car, and you drive your new Toyota, or whoever is rich, like richer, they buy like very nice Mercedes, BMW, or even richer, they buy Lamborghini, Ferrari, and they drive it, and they're very comfortable, and you feel sort of pleasure from this because you wanted to drive that car. And but sometimes, although we have something, we don't feel happy. So happiness comes and goes. Sometimes we wake up in a bad mood. So we want to be happy, but it just suffering comes up, and then sometimes happiness is not there. it's also, it comes and goes. So in the Vedic knowledge, it's described that happiness and distress come and go like summer seasons, like winter and summer. So actually, the modern there's a very interesting study in the modern psychology. It describes that when you desire something, for example, you want ice cream on a very hot day, right? So while you dream about this ice cream, while you think about getting this ice cream, you're experiencing actually more pleasure than when you're actually taking the ice cream. So that's a psychological research. It shows that anticipation of the satisfaction of your desires or satisfaction of your wants and needs, it's it it produces more dopamine. It releases more dopamine in your brain, and you feel happier than when you actually get something that you want. It's very interesting. But what is more interesting is that there is a thing called endless happiness in psychology. So, for example, we'll use same example just for simplicity. Is you want ice cream, right? You come in, you take ice cream, and you start eating, and you eat 1 scoop, 2 scoops, and then what happens is you become satisfied, right? So your feelings become your feeling of taste, and your desire to taste something becomes saturated, and you become satisfied. So every scoop taste, you get less happiness from taking the next scoop, right? And then once you're satisfied, imagine what happens next if you keep eating ice cream. You keep eating ice cream, and you're satisfied, you're already full. Now your stomach is like overflowing with ice cream, and then you take even more. You start throwing up, you start suffering, right? So this is the nature of material happiness as it is described both by modern psychology and ancient Vedic psychology. So you become saturated, and I had this discussion with my friends at university and as well as a teacher. What is very interesting is not that happiness and distress come and go. The most interesting thing is our desire for that happiness that doesn't end. Imagine, I gave you an example of an ice cream. You can take an example of, for example, you wanted a new phone, new iPhone 12 XR Max, 1000 GB. I'm just, of course, joking, but you want some cool phone. So you wait for this day that you buy it, that you save for it, or someone give you a present and gives you this phone. And then you get this phone, and you're so happy in the first day, but what happens after 1 week, 2 weeks? Your happiness decreases. Every time you pick up your phone, you become kind of used to it. And after 2 or 3 years, you don't feel any happiness from this phone, becomes old. And actually even sooner now, like after 1 year, they release a new phone, and whether Apple or Samsung or whatever company, they encourage you to buy a new phone because it's better, and you're like, oh, I want to get this phone. So that's the nature of happiness, of material happiness. It always decreases. Whatever you get, whether it's a top position in the top company, or big house on the beach, or very nice wife and kids, or whatever your desire is, the happiness from that always decreases. That's the nature of material happiness. But what is very interesting and is our desire to be happy always. We don't want to suffer. We don't want our happiness to decrease. Actually, we want our happiness to increase. Imagine you wake up every day, and every day gets better and better. and there is no natural disasters or no bodily pains or no other people who cause you suffering, you're like, wow, this is amazing, you know. This we are striving towards this ideal, but everyone understands it cannot happen. So why I say this is very interesting is because Vedic knowledge actually explains why we cannot be happy from the material things. So the explanation is as follows. Whatever is outside of us are the material objects, right? And how do we act? We act through our senses. We feel through tongue, so 5 senses, yeah. Tongue, hearing, smelling, touching, and what else? And seeing. So this is our 5 senses, and we act through these senses. So our senses, first our eyes see something, oh, new iPhone, I want to get it. We go and get it and buy it. So what happens is we act, and our senses are actually material because our body is material. So we want to bring two together. We want to bring our senses and the material objects together, and we think this is happiness. At least the material world is dictating us this idea. You go to uni, a society, everyone is telling you this. You have to consume the material objects you want if you want to be happy. And they understand the truth that actually while you consume these objects the happiness decreases. Therefore they have to produce more and more new things so you can kind of space out in this variety of objects and forget about real self, of which we will speak next. And by bringing objects and the senses together, you cannot get real satisfaction. Not only we want to be happy, we want to be fulfilled. Fulfilled means you're happy and you don't need anything else to be happy. So that's why we're going on the next level. The next level above senses is mind. So you will see some people actually take pleasure in reading, discussing, so philosophers, yeah? There's so many philosophers, so many philosophies that people study, and everyone has their own life philosophy to which they adhere, at least for some time. It changes over life. And so these philosophers, they engage their mind in different processes, reading, discussing, and this is called subtle enjoyment. Why subtle? Because mind has a subtle nature. Modern psychology or neuropsychology actually says that the mind resides in the brain, so brain is where we think. But actually the Vedic knowledge says that the mind has a subtle nature. It is connected with the brain, but it comes from the heart. So beyond our physical body, we have a subtle body. So neuropsychology is kind of entering in this field, as well as, if we want to explain it from mathematical point of view, quantum mechanics and quantum physics is kind of getting there slowly, but people cannot really understand. It's very difficult to understand the subtle elements. It's still material, but subtle. So mind is one of these elements. So beyond our physical body, we have a subtle body, which is our mind. So the Vedic knowledge explains that actually you can enjoy through mind as well. So people read, discuss, and they enjoy. They have this subtle enjoyment. Some people can read and read and read and just engage their mind and feel some pleasure from this action. And we really respect these people. We call them very smart philosophers because they can discuss very deep things that normal people cannot really fully grasp and understand. But even the mind cannot be satisfied, you know. Your mind is always somewhere. Even now you're watching the video, it's probably already too long for your mind. It was probably already too long after 3 seconds. Because after a few seconds, mind starts thinking something else. It's very hard to keep focus. It's very hard to be focused. And, but beyond the mind, still, even if you try to satisfy the mind, it's not possible because it's a subtle matter. The philosophers are still searching for the truth. And new philosopher comes and he defeats the other philosophy, and so on and so forth. We call it material civilization, the progress, the evolution. The new theory will come. That's the problem of the society, of the current society. They think that the society is progressing. We are finding some new brain cells, or you know, whether it's neurobiology or robotics. So there's so many different fields, and technological progress is obviously it's there, and there's a lot of benefits from it, but there is also a lot of problems. So that's why I'm using the Vedic knowledge, because it's although it's old, 5,000 years old, it definitely can make you happy if you understand the idea, the truth. So let's go deeper. I feel you can hear me. Let's go deeper than the mind. So we understand feelings you cannot satisfy, and the mind also you cannot satisfy. It always desires something new, something different, variety. But above the mind is intelligence. Intelligence is our understanding of good and bad, of choosing what to do, choosing our next action, the volition, the free will, if you want to call it, to a certain extent. So intelligence is also as part of the subtle body, but so it should control the mind, ideally. The intelligence should control the mind. Because if you don't understand what is good and bad, then you cannot be happy, that's for sure. For example, the kids, they want to eat everything, burgers, pizzas, all the unhealthy food because it tastes good. But parents understand this is not healthy, this is not good for you. But if kids are not taught what is good and bad, then it's very dangerous. They can get sick, you know. If you, for example, the fire, you know, if the kid doesn't know that the fire is hot, unless he touches it and gets burned, he doesn't know. But usually the parents tell him, don't touch it because you will get burned. Sometimes still they do, but the idea is, if we don't know what is good and bad, we cannot be happy. So intelligence is responsible for this process. If the person is smart, to be smart, it doesn't mean you know what is good and bad. You can know a lot of information, but you still don't know what is good and bad. So knowing what is good and bad, it means you have a good intelligence, right? And the final covering of the body, of the subtle body, the most subtle, is a false ego. So you call people egoistic. You say I, right? I want to do this, I want to do that, I don't care about people, so this egoistic person. So selfish person. So false ego means false identification, and that's where all the problems lie. And that's where modern psychology cannot really reach this area, because we want to materially prove something. But the current things, trying to see this, our false ego, you actually don't need material tools. You don't need to put people in laboratory and use material tools trying to extract the false ego, the subtle body, from the person. No, you just need to have intelligence and knowledge to see it in people's behavior. So false identification is the cause of all problems of people, of suffering, of material happiness as well. So what is this false identification? So we think we are this body, and that's the biggest problem. When I call this project I'm real, it means we have to understand who we are first. If you want to be real with others, you have to understand who you are. Unfortunately, in the Western society, in the modern world, the education system, the teachers and the leaders, they don't know themselves who they are, neither, so how can they teach others about their real self? They don't know anything about the process of self-realization, and although they are qualified to teach material progress, how to progress materially, so they teach economics, business, medicine, all the other faculties, and they are very qualified, and we really require this knowledge that they produce. But there is a very nice example. I will finish soon. Please try to stay with me. Is a very nice example given in the Vedic knowledge. Is about the bird in the cage. So if you have a bird in a cage, for example, in your house, right, you keep the bird with you, so you keep it in the cage, and what you do is you clean the cage, because it gets dirty over time. It's very important, but what is more important is you feed the bird, because otherwise it will die. If you clean the cage every day but you don't feed the bird will die. Similarly, the bird in the cage is our soul within this body, which is covered by material senses in the physical body, and also our subtle body, which is mind, intelligence, and false ego. So what do you have to? So we have a soul that gives the power to this body. You have to understand that the body does not act naturally, just by the chance. No, the heart beats. The nurses, doctors say that the cause of this heartbeat is electric impulse. But what is the cause of electric impulse? No one knows. And why does the person die? And he still has the heart and chemicals, but you cannot bring him back to life. So the Vedic knowledge explains that this body is powered by the soul. So the soul within this body, within this material body, is like a bird in a cage. And we have to feed the soul. The bird in the cage, the soul inside this body, desires some food, some non-material food, energy, non-material energy. But what we do all our life is we're trying to satisfy our body. We're trying to try to clean the cage as best as we can, and we have really clean cage, but the bird inside the body is not satisfied, and that's the problem. That's the problem. That's what I want to bring up right now. So, what is the soul? Why it's not satisfied, and how to satisfy it? Vedic knowledge answers all these questions, and I'll speak more about it in my next video. But I hope you understand, and I hope you have some questions or maybe comments that you want to make. But yes, please engage in the discussion with me, ask me questions, and let me know if something is, if there is some problem or issues in understanding this idea. And yeah, I will see you tomorrow, but please stay with me, stay tuned, and we want to continue our exchange. So please engage with me. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.